Hello, everybody, and welcome to Community Forum. My name is Ron Vecchia, and our special edition of Me and the Manager. I'm here with Town Manager Austin Faison. Before we begin our program, I would just like to reflect on this past 2 weeks, more specifically last Friday when we celebrated the life of Michael McDuffie. Mike served on the council for only a year, and he made such a positive impact on things that he accomplished, friends that he made, the constituents that he helped. He was going to be sorely missed. Michael, lit up a room. He had a tremendous personality. I guess there's many, many words that can describe him. Honest, genuine, loyal, smart, funny, sincere. But the word that really comes to mind with me is friendship. I am truly going to miss Mike, and I hope you will all have in your prayers for the family, Joanne, Mike, and Samantha, and certainly Michael's parents and brother and sisters as they approach the next couple of weeks, which will be very, very difficult. Thank you. Okay, Austin, we've been busy.
We have been.
And I guess one of the first things I'll ask you is kind of an update on where we stand with the center project. I know your committee's been meeting, so where are we at?
Sure. So David Rodriguez started in November, and very happy to have him on board as the assistant town manager. We have financed the project. We had some votes that happened in November and December that brought our financing levels up to the place that it needed to be. We have one additional item of authorization for $700,000 that we need to pass. That's for a grant loan application with MWRA, but that should tie up the majority of the funding for the project. So we're at an exciting point that now I've named my managers committee. They have met twice now. They are choosing a firm to do the engineering feasibility study, or peer review, excuse me, on the engineering of the project. Mostly climate-related concerns, but it's a limited scope, and it's work that will be started in the very, very near term. I believe they're very close to choosing a firm to perform that work for us. So with that said, Woodard & Curran will come to kind of complete design with some of that input and some of the input from the managers committee, and then we will be able to put this project out to bid. And that's what I'm really excited about, because once it goes out to bid, we get some prices. We'll get a sense of who we're bringing on, who we're working with, the company that's really going to be represented in our community, and then we get to have some of the additional conversations and concerns with the impacts to the center business district. So how are we potentially going to shift the direction of traffic, or what are we going to do to alleviate parking when a road is ripped up and things like that. So working through that project with the firm that's actually going to be doing the work is it's exciting. We're at this point where we have a good project. We're ready to move forward with it. We're just fine-tuning it a little bit, but we're really close to taking this step that this summer we will have construction happening, and it will happen most likely this summer or next year. And then the infrastructure work in the center business district, as we construe it right now, will be finished, which is exciting to consider.
Absolutely.
It's I know you worked in the past on the surface work, but we have an exciting new place that we can take one of the kind of centerpieces of the community, and I'm really excited to kind of get shovels in the ground and start working on something that this community has really been talking about for a long time, and is in my mind long overdue.
Good. Now, the committee that you have, not that you have to give me the names, but the representation in that committee is across the board?
Absolutely. Local business owners, members of the chamber. We have people who serve in different capacities with different levels of our government within the state. It's a good group, and we have a diverse set of viewpoints. Councilor Christopher is on it as well, but we're trying to hit as many parts of the community as possible, so that different groups do not feel like they're removed from this process. I want it to be people are able to touch these committees. I'm trying to come up with a few different committees for different things that hit kind of diverse sets of the population, so that no one area or group feels underrepresented in these processes.
Good, very good. I got a couple of questions from people that live in the Walden Street area, observing people out there, like engineering studies being done. Can you just kind of inform the people what's going on? Because I think down the road it's going to be very exciting for those who have been putting up with flooding for
Exactly. So in the Ingleside Park area, we have environmental bond bill money from the state that we are going to utilize for a large-scale water project at Ingleside Park. Now, nothing will happen with that this calendar year, but we are engaging with Woodard and Curran to do the feasibility study for really how is it going to work. They have to look at a pumping station. That's been discussed previously. It's been something that I think almost you can logically move towards. I understand the discussion point of it. It may not be the best solution for Winthrop. I have since been leaning towards a larger scale water storage project under Ingleside Park. We almost get a little 2-for-1 there. We alleviate the issues with our system with water, and what happens with some of these historic high tides. I mean, this weekend a storm is coming, and the tides are going to be up 11 and a half feet, 11-ish, which is high. It's not the historical high tides that you all dealt with last year, but every time we have to think about one of those things, I'm thinking about, I wish we were doing this project a couple of years ago to alleviate some of these concerns. And in the long term, we will be alleviating those concerns with the water storage project. But then on top of that is a park that's very similar to what we have with Ingleside right now, but we can clean up some of the former design issues that were presented from that park. So again, it's all facilitating us getting the water out of our town. We have the pipes to do the work. We just run them over capacity in those kind of force majeure, finger of God, 100-year storms type of thing. But we need to be prepared for those types of things, and that's what all of this infrastructure will do in the long term. Is it's a series of steps, but we will work towards alleviating the water from that part of the town. Then we will be looking at other parts of the community as well simultaneously to alleviate water concerns there. Winthrop is unique. It's a peninsula in the ocean with a major harbor, water hitting it from all sides. It is in a very unique position, and the work will not stop with any one project, but some of these bigger ones, it's going to be exciting to see the results of them to alleviate decent percentages of the population at one time of the concerns, and hopefully in the long run decrease their insurance rates, things like that.
Good, good. Let's switch gears and talk about some of our neighbors, Massport in particular. I know the council agreed. We voted on the upgrade in the pilot program, which gives us an additional immediate $300,000 in 2019, and they're going to add an additional $150,000 per year up until 2025.
Yep.
And by then, we'll be getting from Massport roughly $2 million.
Yeah, so right at the end, it tails off a little bit, a little under $1.5 million a year. But very exciting times. I mean, this is a direct result of the negotiations that we've done. Also, the different levels of government that represent us, the Speaker and Senator Moncori, were instrumental in working towards this. But Winthrop is being impacted by the airport. It's very clear. There has been an increase in activity at the airport, and we are increasing the amount that they're willing to invest in our community. It's the natural result, and it's what I will continue to strive to do for the community is continue to be at the table with the MWRAs, Massports, and things like that. And this, again, only ties us up to 2025, and then we enter into another agreement. And we will have another opportunity to, at that point, start at $2 million per year and move up from there. So I've brought this up in the past, but this is how we get capital, like a capital plan taken care of. This is how it is a very good funding source of a longer term capital plan. the flip side of that is the Winthrop Foundation. So a very exciting $500,000 per year that will be allocated by, it's essentially a 501c3 that it will be, and it will be a group of representatives. I get a few members on it, you get a member, our superintendent, some other levels of government get membership on there as well. But they will be giving out essentially one-time grants for different projects that they deem worthy. Now, we will have heavy Winthrop representation on that, so we will be financing Winthrop-based projects. Just from the top of my head, the playground at Cummings, things like that, things that the public has had discussions about. If we have signage that's lower scale, intersections that we need new flashing stop signs for, those types of things. It's one-time cost that we can say, let's knock it out. We have $500,000. Let's spread it out over 10, 20 projects. In my longer-term capital plan, that won't come on in this financial plan for fiscal 20, but in fiscal 21, we'll have like a 5-year plan. That will be an additional funding source for capital-related things. So we will be able to say, over 5 years, here's a bunch of one-time costs. Here's how we're paying for them. So people start to get a level of certainty, and that's what I'm always working towards. We've talked about this a few times, but I want to set expectations and then talk about if I've met or failed to meet expectations. We can't do that if I don't set expectations in the first place. So until we get to a capital plan, I can't say what order things will happen and things like that. But when I have 5 years worth of things, say this is Pico Park is you want something to happen at Pico Park. Well, that's happening in 3 years. It's going to cost this much money. This is the funding source, and here's a description of the project. I want to be able to talk about things like that in the future. But we can only do that if we start building up what our asks are, assessing the whole community on what our priorities are, and then start working through what our priorities are and how we can pay for things. And our budget will be nice and clean this year. We have some software that we brought online. I want a capital plan that's just as clean and kind of informational as what we're presenting with the budget. And then I also want to be able to have an easy to decipher website that walks you through the budget, but also the capital plan, so that not everyone likes to look through budgets like I do, and they could care less about what a certain department gets and stuff like that. But it is a lot easier when you can go into a screen and click a couple boxes and then say, I pay $5,000 in taxes. Where's my money go? Oh, $1 goes here. $50 goes here. You get a sense of what you're actually paying for and where your money's going. So I want to move in that direction in the long term.
Good, good. And speaking of money and the fact that we need to raise taxes every year to operate the town budget, just recently we had a visitor, in several visitors, kind of give the folks in Winthrop an idea of exactly how that came about and what our goals and objectives are with the business development officials from the city, from the state, I should say.
Absolutely. So we had a representative from the Mass Office of Business Development come out, Maria DeStefano. I had met with her previously, exchanged a few emails, had a couple phone calls. She's very excited to help facilitate economic development in Winthrop. She knows how important it is to the speaker and to different people in government that Winthrop become as vibrant as we really think it should be. And she's looking to help us facilitate that work. So she grew up in East Boston. Winthrop is near and dear to her heart. She's spent time here when she was growing up. So she wants to see Winthrop be successful just from her own personal side, let alone her professional stuff. So we had talked previously about finding some sites in Winthrop, finding sites where we could really say to a business, you could set up shop here. There's a way to have 100, 200 people work in a building here, and we're going to help you make it happen. So there's different funding strategies we can use for those, like using TIFs, which plays with the increase in the tax rate type of thing. We're just getting the same base tax money, it's just with the increase type of thing. But a couple different strategies that we could pursue to help kind of empower these businesses to come to town or entice them to come to town. It's not to give them a benefit that isn't available to other businesses in the community or give them a leg up. It's to try to entice some people to come. And it would be for it's short-term little things that we could do to try to get them to come to town. But so Maria came this time. She brought a representative from Mass Life Sciences, and we're excited. There's real potential to bring a couple businesses to town. And
What is the draw? Why is Winthrop the right place for maybe a business to move to?
for every reason that Amazon was thinking of going to Suffolk Downs, I would say the same things to any business considering to Winthrop. Your proximity to a major airport, your proximity to what is quickly becoming an international city, the cost of living in Winthrop. To buy property in Winthrop is less expensive than almost everywhere in this area. You have local talent that is going out of town for work that is almost unexplored to what the potential of local talent being retained in Winthrop. There's also the proximity to public transportation, which we'll always continue working on from my office to facilitate Winthrop being a bigger participant in the regional transit. There's a lot of reasons to come to Winthrop. And at the end of the day, you can see Boston out the window. It is that close. There's no necessarily reason why you should be paying factors higher for a business space when you can set up shop here. There's no competition. There's not a ton of traffic. There's a lot of reasons to come here, and we are all working together to kind of get some businesses to consider coming here. And we talked with the chamber earlier this morning, and I will continue to rely on the chamber to help facilitate economic development. I can't spend all of my time trying to pitch companies on coming here. It's an all hands on deck type of thing, but if people know someone who runs a company, tell them to give Winthrop a shot. There's no reason not to. And we are in a unique situation right now that property values are quite low, but once some of the light bulbs start going off in people's heads and developers, it will change very quickly. And I want to do what I can to get Winthrop to have the most benefit out of the process of kind of coming up to snuff with all the
It's
other
kind of all
areas.
these little elements that really need to fit in place.
Absolutely.
Jobs, increased housing, which kind of brings me to the project that's on the table right now in the center. I know they had one meeting, the developer had a meeting and so forth, and listened to the concerns of the neighbors and so forth. And I think I am optimistic that something will be coming out of this in the end. Maybe it won't look the same way, and I hope it doesn't, because I wasn't a big fan of the design. I think it should be more New Englandish, and maybe refine possibly the amount of units. And one of the big things we talked about was the fact that they removed retail out of the first floor, and how important it is to actually have retail there.
Absolutely. So I like the project. The design of the building can be called into question. That we can do that with any building that's proposed. I think that we are in a good spot with that developer, because that developer has already invested in the community. That developer is on to try to make that into something at this point, which is good, and that's what we need. It's hard for that developer right now because Envelo is dealing with being the first large-scale development happening in the Center Business District, and also in the nature of the map discussion that has kind of been ongoing about the Center Business District. That has almost sullied the reputation of this project from the jump, unfortunately. But that said, I like this project. I think in the long run, they'll come up with prefab materials and a look that kind of fits the style a little bit more. That's what those companies do. They can come up with something that everyone can get on board with a little bit more. In terms of the height, I am good with the height. I mean, I want it to be a mixed-use building, so I understand that you can't really dig into the ground here because we're on top of water, so your parking has to go on a portion of the first floor, and then you build up from there. So with that reality in the Center Business District, you're cutting a floor of, unless there's no parking available with it, you're cutting a floor to do parking. So to make these projects economically viable, they need to build up a little bit. I get that it's jarring. It's different. It's totally different than what's in the Center Business District now, but that is how the center business district is going to look in the future. It is going to be 4 and 3-story buildings, and towards the middle, it could even be a little bit higher. It's very clear that there are not site impacts, there are not sun and wind impacts and things like that. The usual reasons that you stop these types of projects or you come up with mitigation for them, those aren't there. It's different. It's different and it's tall, and I understand that, and I am sympathetic, but just because it's different doesn't mean that it's not a good project. So I like the project. I think that it will help set kind of a design model for how the center business district can look. It can be done in a short amount of time, so it can fit in while we're doing all of the infrastructure work in the center business district. So there's a few different reasons why it works really well. In terms of the parking on the first floor, we've chatted about this offline. I've chatted about this publicly as well, but I've run a traffic and parking office, and I understand how parking works in center areas. I've dealt with one of the more unique places in this area in terms of both the development of a new area of town, but also the pressures on one of the older parts of town and the unique traffic structure that it had. There isn't a parking problem in the center business district from my perspective. I was out there yesterday during lunchtime, and from my vantage point, I could count 18 parking spots that were open. That's not a problem. If your parking isn't being utilized, I am not concerned about a neighborhood being upset about parking available at a new development. I am also of the mindset that you cannot spur people to kind of accept different modes of transportation or consider different modes of transportation if you keep building parking for them. If we want traffic to start being a problem, let's stop building parking spots for everyone.
You told us, you gave an example this morning of your own situation when you decided.
Absolutely. So my wife and I moved to Jamaica Plain a few years ago, right around when we were getting married. I worked for the city of Somerville then, and I made the decision to get rid of my car. I didn't need a car to get to Somerville from JP. I took the train. I changed my lifestyle. I got into reading my Kindle on the train and dealing with the fun of being on the train. But we had to pay extra for a parking spot, and instead of paying another quarter of our rent more to pay for a parking spot, we said, get the D-Pass. It is what it is, and we dealt with it. And it's the same thing that with some of the developments going in Coolidge Corner, in Brookline, or different parts of Boston. We do not need to continue building parking. To me, it's almost a fool's errand. The way that we move around, it's going to change in the very near future, and we do not need to continuously build space for cars to utilize a small period of the time. The cars that will be utilizing that parking in that building will be gone during the daytime because there aren't places for them to work in town, unfortunately. And then there will be 30 cars more worth of traffic coming in and out of the town each day. If we didn't build that parking, we'd have to tell those people to consider different modes. Maybe you don't move here with 2 kids in your SUV. Maybe it just doesn't work. It's not that we want to make it unfeasible for new families to move here, but maybe that development isn't the right place for families. Maybe it's for recent graduates. Maybe it's for whatever category you want to put people into.
It's a similar audience that up on Pleasant Street.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean, I don't think any families with kids moved into those condos.
Yep.
And they were mostly either retired or young professionals.
Yep.
Right out of school.
Yep. And in all honesty, too, this is another thing that I think about with that parking. We want to spurn business in the center business district, so we're going to facilitate a place for people to park separately than in the center business district. Like, we want them to go inside their building, not come outside and go up to their apartment. Who's stopping to buy the sandwich in that circumstance and stuff like that? I want people to be walking back from a bus and need to get something. Maybe they want a bowl of pasta, or maybe they want some nachos or some chicken wings or something. They got a reason to stop because they're walking by and it smells good and they're hungry, whatever. If they're in their car, they're not going to interact with it at the street level, and I want to facilitate that. So take all that parking aside, those 5 tandem spots that they introduced into their newer spec ups of the project they brought when they did site plan review, I have encouraged them that I would much rather that be commercial space. I want that building to be mixed use. I want to have continuity of commercial space at the first level at the entire square as much as possible. or the Center Business District, excuse me. And I have encouraged them in every single time I've met with them that I would like to see commercial space there. It's more economically feasible with them to be a mixed-use development. It's not to compete with other places. I mean, Mark Wallers wants to set up shop in there. If he could put in a juice bar or something like that, he would take it in a heartbeat. But I am hard pressed to think that parking for 10 cars is more important than having kind of a fresh and new business, reinvigorating that Center Business District.
What's your vision for where the school is now, the middle school site? I know we've talked about it.
Yeah.
All kinds of ideas. We've done all kinds of studies. What is your take on it? What you would like to see there?
You know, personally, I'm still agnostic. What I want to see is something. I want to see the building operating. So it's whether it's that building or we're taking that building down and facilitating the build of a new building. We got to work through the zoning a little bit with it, but I want that to be something that we're working on. I want to put out an RFP this year or an RFI at the very, very least. I want to bring in a partner to get moving on this site. It's been there. It's been a while. We need to re-engage the process a little bit, and that's why we're going back to the master plan with form in place, and we're just going to kind of get a map that everyone's on board with. Are we going to include the middle school in that map? Are we going to talk honestly about the ice rink and its placement on the site? Maybe an ice rink makes more sense on a different part of the site. If we're on the hook for an ice rink, what does that look like? I don't necessarily want to be on the hook for an ice rink, but how do we bring in a developer that would at least consider building an ice rink for us if maybe we took down the rest of the middle school? What do we do with people who are a little displaced for the times, like our Parks and Rec and our ice time and things like that? So we have a couple different things to put in place, but it is a unique site. There's very, very, very few sites of that size that are available in this proximity to Boston. And when I say whatever we get out of it is going to be positive, I truly mean that. I can't say if it's going to be a biotech company or if it's going to be a mixed-use development or it's all going to be condos or a hotel or anything. It's going to be better than a vacant building. And it's going to be happening in the near term. And I'm always trying to work now in setting things up that the plans have been done. We've talked about these. Let's reinvigorate the public process to make sure everyone's on board. And then what are the steps that we need to do to get moving forward on it? Okay.
Well, we have less than 2 minutes, but real quickly, I'm excited about the opportunity zone that was established down the beach. Real quickly, it's Shirley Street, just about down where it intersects with Veterans Road, all the way actually down to Point Shirley. And in a nutshell, what is an opportunity zone? What is the number one thing that it really does for a developer?
It's free money for developers is what it is. It's essentially good hedge fund investment to spur development in these places deemed opportunity zones. Very exciting for us, waterfront property. We need to get right in front of the right people to start getting their interest piqued in it, but it presents us with a unique opportunity to really reinvigorate that part of town. Right by the marina, there's a lot of things I'd like to see there, but we're at a place that we're going to be able to do some interesting things down there, and it's exciting.
Very good. On that note, we're going to wrap it up. We'll do this again maybe in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good to me.
We've been speaking with the town manager. This is Ron Vecchia. You've been watching Community Forum, the special edition, Me and the Manager.